Hi guys, welcome to Dublin. My name's Dave and I'm going to show you around a little bit of Dublin today. We're going to visit some of the iconic sites and landmarks. We begin our tour on the south bank of the River Liffey at the site of the Viking settlement and visit a church they started, Christ Church Cathedral. Next, we head to Dublin Castle, once the seat of British government and the site where the city got its name. Then we take a short stroll through Temple Bar, one of Dublin's nightlife hubs, before heading over to Trinity College and a walk down Grafton Street. Grafton Street will take us to St Stephen's Green, one of the city's great urban parks, before we walk up Dawson Street to see Mansion House where the mayor resides. And finally, we enter Merrion Square to pay a visit to the Oscar Wilde statue and then ending at Leinster House, the seat of the Irish Parliament. And we're here right now in what we would call ancient Dublin, or if you like, Viking Dublin. Turn the camera around, and here we have this Viking ship, and this was a replica of a ship that was built over 900 years ago by the Vikings. Now I want to cross the road here and show you exactly where the Vikings arrived in the year 840. And I'm approaching the River Liffey here. The River Liffey runs through the city of Dublin. If you look further on there at this bridge, guys, that's exactly where the Vikings arrived in the year 840. And they made their settlement right here where this building, government building is, the Dublin City Council. This is where they first settled in Dublin, here at this particular site and behind it. Now, we're gonna, as I said, we are in ancient Dublin, so I am gonna go up to Dublin's oldest street. The name of this street is Fishamble Street, and it gets its name because at one time in the early 1400s, right up until the 1700s, the late 1700s, there was a fish market here. Fishamble Street, as you can see there, guys, the oldest street in Dublin. There also was an open-air slaughterhouse here, and back then they called open-air slaughterhouses shambles, hence the name Fishamble Street. Now, we're going to visit Dublin's oldest house, or I should say, Dublin's oldest still standing house. And this is the house right here. I'll try and get a better view of it for you. And this is number 26 Fishamble Street, and it was built in 1720. And descendants of the same family have lived here for over 250 years. Across the road here, guys, you might notice this is Handel's Hotel, and Handel's Hotel is named after George Frederick Handel. And the first recital of Handel's Messiah took place here on the 13th of April, 1742. And performing at Handel's Messiah was the choirs of both St. Patrick's Cathedral and Christ Church Cathedral. I'll show you the plaque on the wall here. George Frederick Handel, the first performance of the Messiah. 1742. There's now a hotel here, as I said, named Handel's Hotel. We're going a little bit further up the road here on Fishamble Street, and we are now going to visit one of Dublin's oldest working building, which is Christ Church Cathedral. And you can see it right there, Christ Church Cathedral. I'm going to get a better view of it. Now, Christ Church Cathedral was established in 1028 by Viking Sihtric. Now, at that time, it was a wooden structure that was built on high ground looking over the Viking settlement of Wood Quay, where we just came from. Now, I'm crossing the road here, you've got to be careful. Plenty of traffic around, or a little bit of traffic around. Gotta wait for the green light. So as I said, Christ Church Cathedral was originally a wooden structure in 1028, but in 1176 it was rebuilt in stone by Richard de Clare, also known as Strongbow. And Strongbow was a Norman warlord, and his tomb lies in rest here in Christ Church Cathedral. Now, in the 12th century, this was a Catholic church run by Archbishop Lawrence O'Toole. Now, around the year 1539, this became an Anglican church during the reign of Henry VIII. And how that came about was Henry VIII had been a Catholic, and he went to the Pope to ask permission, or to grant permission for a divorce from one of his wives. And he was rejected, and so he decided to start his own religion. And that religion was the Anglican religion. And as I said, this cathedral became an Anglican cathedral and has been ever since. There's also the largest cathedral crypt in Christ Church Cathedral, the largest cathedral crypt in both Ireland and the UK. And it has the oldest secular carvings of any place in the world. And there's a great story about the crypt, that there was a rat and a cat found in one of the organ pipes here in 1850. And their mummified remains are on display in the crypt. And they're affectionately known as Tom and Jerry. So we're going to move on, guys, to our next destination, which is Dublin Castle. We're approaching the gates to Dublin Castle, the seat of British government in Ireland for over 700 years. It was first established by King John of England in the year 1204. Let me just show you this little courtyard here. It's called Hoey's Court. It's been many movies and scenes for movies been made here, including The Tudors, also P.S. I Love You, and scenes from Braveheart also as well. As I say, we're coming into Dublin Castle. It says right in the sign here, welcome to Dublin Castle. And so first, where we're going to go is the Dublin Gardens. And the Dublin Gardens is the location of where Dublin gets its name. It's where two rivers met, where the River Poddle that runs underneath this part of the city today, and also the River Liffey, which is about 500 yards to my left at this present day and flows through the centre of Dublin City. Well, them two rivers met at this spot that we're going to right now, and it was a very dark pool. It was actually the Vikings used this area as their harbour in the 9th century. So it was a harbour in the 9th century with a very dark pool, or black pool if you like. And in the Irish language, the word for dove is, the Irish language word dove means black or dark. And the word linn means pool. So there you get the name, Dove Linn, which was then turned into Dublin. They just dropped the H in Dove and the last N in Linn to get Dublin Gardens. So this is exactly the spot where Dublin got its name, Dublin. If you look further over here, you'll see the round tower of Dublin Castle, or if you like, the Record Tower. This is a very famous landmark here in Dublin Castle. It was originally a prison, and supposedly an inescapable prison. But two Irishmen escaped from here in the year 1583. They were Red Hugh O'Donnell and the son of a Gaelic lord from County Donegal, and Art O'Neill, who was also the son of a Gaelic lord from County Tyrone. They were imprisoned here for their activities against the British Crown, and somehow in the depths of winter in January 1583 they escaped from a rope from the top of the tower down to the basement, and they made their way out through a drain into the River Poddle, and swam their way to safety. Now, unfortunately for Art O'Neill, later he succumbed to the conditions and he died. But Red Hugh O'Donnell survived. He lost a couple of toes through frostbite, but other than that he was fine, and he became a real thorn in the side of the British authorities for many years to come, having staged the 9-year war. And he also got help from the Spanish Armada as well. If you look at this lovely church here, it's called the Chapel Royal, and this Chapel Royal was used for the representative of the King in Dublin Castle for over 700 years, and they were known as the Lord Lieutenant or Viceroy. And inside the church you have the names of every single Viceroy and Lord Lieutenant, if you like, from the year 1204 right up until when Ireland got its independence in 1922. The church was built in 1807. We are coming up now to the courtyard of Dublin Castle, and this courtyard has seen many events throughout the years. Most notably, as I said, in 1922, when Ireland got its independence from Britain, there was a ceremony, or handing over ceremony, giving the keys back to the Irish people of Dublin Castle. And the story goes, the leader of Ireland at the time was Michael Collins, and the ceremony was to take place around 12 p.m. that day, and on the 6th of December 1922, but Collins was late. He was 7 minutes late, and the Lord Lieutenant was furious that Collins was late, and he said to him, "Collins, how dare you be late for this ceremony? You're 7 minutes late." And Collins replied back to him, 7 years, 7 minutes? You can have your 7 minutes. We've been waiting 700 years. Now, these are the state apartments. They're beautiful, luxurious rooms, beautifully furnished, beautiful and fantastic sculptures within the building and paintings and so forth. But the most celebrated room in here is St. Patrick's Hall, and St. Patrick's Hall is where they have all the state dinners for over 200 years. Some of the notable people that have come, or dignitaries have come for their state dinner here, was John F. Kennedy in June of 1963, just 5 months before his assassination. Queen Elizabeth II came here to Dublin Castle for a state dinner, and it had been our first time ever in Ireland, and that was only in 2011. And then Princess Grace has been here before, and the last celebrity, if you like, that was here was only just 3 years ago, and that was Pope Francis. So we're going to leave Dublin Castle now, and we're going to make our way down to the lovely riverside neighbourhood of Temple Bar. Folks, we're walking down the cobblestone streets of Temple Bar, a very, very popular area here in Dublin, especially among tourists. And if you look right over here to my right, you'll see, to my left, you'll see the Clarence Hotel. Clarence Hotel is partially owned by Bono and The Edge from U2, and it's an amazing fact of how they came to own this hotel. This is the back entrance to it. But what happened was, when they were teenagers just starting out, they were doing a gig around town, and they were to meet friends back at this hotel. They came in, and the bartender refused them service, as maybe they were a little bit scruffy looking, seeing they were band members. But on the way out, Bono turned around and said to the bartender, he said, "The next time we'll be back here, we will own this pub." And true to his word, 15, 20 years later, he bought the pub, he bought the hotel. Today, they did own it outright, but today they own a 50% share in it. So we're in Temple Bar here, as I said, guys. This is the #1 tourist attraction in Dublin, a lovely riverside community, full of great bars, restaurants, and also boutique stores that mostly carry Irish produced products such as arts and crafts and such. Now, Temple Bar gets its name from Sir William Temple, an Englishman who arrived here in Dublin in 1609. And we are in what would have been his gardens, because he had a mansion here, and all of this land around Temple Bar belonged to him. He was also the provost of Trinity College Dublin, Ireland's most recognised and renowned university, and from 1609 up until his death in 1627. As I say, lovely cobblestone streets of Temple Bar, nice area. They have music going on in all the bars from 11 a.m. right up until the early hours of the morning. Now, it is a very expensive area in Dublin to have a few drinks and to have something to eat. This is the main bar here in Temple Bar, and obviously it's called Temple Bar. And here is Sir William Temple, the man that this area of Dublin is known after, Sir William Temple. We'll move on a little bit more through Temple Bar, and we're going to head off up the street a little. So I'm here on Nassau Street, and we're walking down beside the walls of Trinity College, and we'll be visiting Trinity College just in a few minutes. But as I do that, as we walk, let me tell you a little bit about Trinity College Dublin. So Trinity College was founded in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I, who was the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, and the last of the Tudor monarchs. Now, this university consists of 47 acres and some of Dublin's most iconic buildings and landmarks. One of these iconic landmarks is the Campanile, or if you like, the bell tower. And suspicion has it that if you walk through the bell tower or the Campanile during exam times, while the bells are ringing, you will fail your exams. Now, the most important and most famous building within this 47-acre campus is the Old Library. And the Old Library houses the famous Book of Kells. Now, the Book of Kells was written in the year 800 by a group of monks, first of all on the island of Iona off the coast of Scotland, and it was completed in Kells in County Meath, just outside of Dublin, about 40 minutes drive away. Now, it was written on vellum from the skin of 130 calves, and it took over 100 years to complete. It was found in the 12th century in Kells Abbey, and it's been on display here in the Old Library since 1850. So a really, really iconic thing. It's also considered, the Book of Kells is considered to be the world's most important medieval manuscript. Now, the university here is a global or international university as regards students. More than half of the students are from foreign countries, especially the likes of Asia and other parts of the world like that, India, some Americans and so forth as well. But very, very international, and it is Ireland's top university, and of course Ireland's oldest university. As I said, it was established in 1592. Lots of famous people have been students here, including Oscar Wilde, Samuel Beckett, George Bernard Shaw, just to mention a few, and also Ireland's first ever president, Douglas Hyde. Now, we are going further up here, and we are approaching College Green. So I just want to show you the front entrance to Trinity College. And unfortunately, during these times of COVID, everything is locked up. So We cannot go in there at this present time. But as we walk, we're coming up on the left-hand side to the Irish Whiskey Museum, and there's a big craze on right now, not just in Dublin but throughout Ireland, with whiskey, and lots of new brands have been distilled in the last few years, last 10, 12 years. About 20 years ago there was 5 distilleries in Ireland. Today there's over 100 new brands of whiskey, or many of them are new brands. So that's the Irish Whiskey Museum. There's altogether 5 whiskey museums in the city of Dublin, well worth a visit. As you see, this is the Dublin tram, and it's basically called the Lewis, and it runs from the city centre out through the Dublin suburbs of north and south. So we'll give you a shot at the world famous, Dublin's most iconic and sacred university, Trinity College. There's just a view of it there for you guys. Plenty of action going around today. The ambulances are out in force. If you look over here at this building right here, guys, that's the old Parliament building. It was established in 1729 and was the seat of the Irish House of Commons and the Irish House of Lords. It ceased to be a parliament in 1800 with the Act of Union, and all Irish affairs were then to be conducted in Westminster. And since 1803 it's been a bank, still a bank today, the Bank of Ireland. We are heading off now, guys and folks, and we are going to visit Ireland's most visited statue. There's got to be hundreds of statues and monuments and busts all across Dublin, but this one that we're going to visit is the most famous of those and the most visited, and it's called the Molly Malone statue. And Molly Malone was a fishmonger who lived in Dublin in the late 1600s, mid to late 1600s, and in 1699 she died of a fever. But she was a fishmonger who wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Now this statue was put here to commemorate Dublin's millennium, when it was 1,000 years old in 1988. Well, as I say, the most visited site, or the most visited statue in all of Dublin, is the Molly Malone statue. There's a great song that was recorded of Molly Malone. I just sang a little bit, or talked a little bit to you about it there, but very famous. So that's Molly Malone. All right, guys, we're walking down and we are going to head to Grafton Street, which is Ireland's most fashionable street.
So, if you're enjoying the tour so far, why don't you go ahead and click that like button and help others discover this video. And if you would like to watch more walking tour videos like this one, then also consider subscribing to our channel and click that notification bell so that you don't miss any new videos. In addition to walking tour videos, we also offer travel tips as well as videos covering day trips. And if you have any place that you would like to see us offer a video tour of, then leave your suggestions in the comments section below. And lastly, if you'd like to buy your tour guide a pint or a cup of coffee, links to do so are also in the description below. Now back to the tour.
All right, folks, we're here on Grafton Street, which is Dublin's most fashionable street, and we're moving on up. And if you look ahead of us here, we have Weir's Jewellers. It's been here since 1869 and one of Dublin's most iconic shops. Definitely the leading jewellery store in Dublin. And if you look further here with that green awning there, this is Brown Thomas, and Brown Thomas is Ireland's most fashionable store. It's got 37 of the world's leading brand name stores and within the building, and it's like our equivalent, Dublin's equivalent to Harrods, if you like. All the big players are here, all the big fashion icons have stores within this building. If you look over here to the left, that's a Brown Thomas building. Or sorry, that is the Marks and Spencer's building, a British company that have been here for many years, lots of locations throughout the country. And there is a really nice rooftop cafe up top where you can see and look down on the streets of Grafton Street and other streets while you're enjoying your cup of coffee or your lunch. We're moving on, guys, and as I say, Grafton Street is usually full of people and lots of buskers out to play their music. In fact, the guys from U2 played here in the late 70s when they were starting out, and there's many other buskers that play on this street, including a young lady by the name of Ali Sherlock. She's been playing here since she was 12 years old, and she is a big player on YouTube. If you look at her videos, she's probably 15, 16 now, and she was also featured on The Ellen Show. If you look over here to my right, this is Bewley's Oriental Cafe, and this was set up in 1840 and is Dublin's oldest coffee shop. It was founded by a Quaker family, the Bewleys, and at one time it was the only coffee shop in Dublin. And in 1970 they made this coffee shop into a co-op where each member of staff became a shareholder or a stakeholder, and so even the waitress that was serving you your breakfast or your lunch had a stake and was part owner of the company. Thought that was really neat. We're moving on up here at Grafton Street. As I say, lots of designer stores on this street. Very expensive street, probably Dublin's most expensive street. If you want to buy something here on this street, you want to have a little bit of cash. There's plenty of jewellery stores, and I say fashion stores too. I want to move in and show you another statue of a real famous person in Irish history. And before there was U2, before there was the Boomtown Rats, there was Thin Lizzy. And this is the man that was the lead singer of Thin Lizzy. And that's Phil Lynott. Phil Lynott statue. A great musician. Unfortunately, he died very, very young, at the tender age of 36. But he was the founder, if you like, of Irish rock and roll music. If it wasn't for him, there would be no U2. He paved the way for the rest of the great bands coming out of Ireland in the late 70s, 80s. This is McDade's pub, famous pub for literary folk. In fact, two men of the literary world who used to drink together here, and that was Patrick Kavanagh, a poet, and Brendan Behan, a novelist, a writer, a playwright. Used to drink here. They worked for a publication just around the corner called Envoy. They were the best of friends at one time. One time they had a big scrap, big fight in this pub. Both were barred, could never come back again. But as I say, lots of things happen on Grafton Street, on and off Grafton Street. That beautiful church down the end there is St. Anne's Church. It was first established in 1707, and it's where Bram Stoker, the guy that wrote Dracula, he was married in that church to Frances Balcom, who happened to be Oscar Wilde's girlfriend. And himself and Oscar Wilde, Stoker, were good friends, but I think they'd have fallen out over the girlfriend. So we're coming up to the top of Grafton Street here, and we are going to go along Stephen's Green in just a minute. All right, folks, we're on Stephen's Green here. I just want to turn your attention to these red bricks over here, and that is the home to the Little Museum of Dublin, an award-winning museum full of history of Dublin, all the way back from medieval times up until the present day. They even have an exhibition room dedicated to the great Irish band U2, and definitely well worth a visit, as it is known as one of the best museums in Dublin. We're making our way, as I say, we're on Stephen's Green. Stephen's Green is the oldest of the 5 Georgian squares of Dublin, founded in 1663, as I say. And Georgian Dublin gets its name from the reign of King George I in 1712, right up to the end of the reign of King George IV in 1830. And we are going into one of, in my opinion, the nicest city park in Dublin, and maybe one of the nicest city parks anywhere in the world. This is Stephen's Green Park, and as I say, established in 1663 for the residents of Merrion Square. But in 1880, a man by the name of Lord Ardalan, or if you like, Arthur Guinness, and he was the grandson, or the great-grandson, of the founder of the Guinness Brewery Company, and he also was the owner of the brewery company himself for a time. But he bought the lease from the residents in 1880 and established this park and opened it free to the public. And he was very much a philanthropist and helped the poor people of Dublin and the homeless in Dublin. And we're going to go visit his monument now in a minute or two. We'll say it's a lovely city park. Some really nice views, a great place to come for tourists, locals, and lots of business people in the area will come here and admire the beautiful gardens whilst having their lunch. And it was Lord Arden himself in 1880 that designed the gardens here, and he lived himself on the south end of Stephen's Green Square. Lots of beautiful trees and everything else about. Now, if you go through the Stephen's Green Park here, you'll see lots of busts, monuments, and statues of very, very well known Irish people, from revolutionaries to politicians, to writers and other such scholars. Now, in 1916, there was a big Easter rising here, the Easter Rebellion, if you like, in 1916, and on the Irish side, they were made of mostly volunteer armies. One of these volunteer armies was the Irish Citizen Army, and the man in command of that post, which their post was right here at Stephen's Green, was Michael Malone. But his second in command was a lady by the name of Constance Gore Booth, otherwise known as Countess Markovich. So she was second in command. And obviously it was a failed rebellion. After 6 days, the Irish contingent of the Easter Rising surrendered, and all the leaders were executed. Countess Markovich was due to be executed, but as she was a woman, it was then commuted to life imprisonment. But she only served a little over a year, or not even a year. And in 1918, she became a politician, and also was the first woman ever to be elected to Westminster. She was part of the Irish party of Sinn Féin. Now, she never actually attended Westminster. Instead, she continued her political activities here at home in Dublin. And in fact, she was an English woman originally, and she was educated in England and lived in England, but her family had a summer home in County Sligo on the west coast of Ireland. And each year as a teenager that she came here, she fell more in love with the beautiful country of Ireland and became very sympathetic with the cause for Irish freedom. I'm looking straight here, guys, at the College of Surgeons in Dublin. This is one of the most renowned college surgeons in the world, established in the 1600s. It's represented by over 60 different countries, and a very, very, very famous college of surgeons and renowned around the world. Oscar Wilde's father was a student here, and he was the leading eye and ear surgeon of his day here in Dublin. Here's the man himself, Lord Ardalan, that bought the lease and opened this park up to the public in 1880. Now, when he died, because of his activities with the poor people of Dublin, it wasn't the Guinness family that paid for this monument, the statue. It wasn't the government of Ireland that paid for it, but in fact it was the poor people of Dublin that paid for this monument in recognition to Lord Arthur Guinness for his contribution to the poor people and his dedication to the poor people and the homeless people of Dublin. Okay folks, we're on Dawson Street here, and we are going to go a little bit further up this street and have a look at the Mansion House. Dawson Street is also another very, very fashionable street here in Dublin, full of really quirky restaurants and pubs. It was developed in the early 1700s by Joshua Dawson, and he in fact designed many of the streets in this area, including Grafton Street, but also he designed this beautiful building that we're going to next, which is the Mansion House. And the Mansion House was first established in 1710, and it's the home to the Lord Mayor of Dublin ever since 1710. The most famous of these Lord Mayors was Daniel O'Connell, known as Ireland's liberator or Catholic emancipator, and he was a politician and lawyer who spent his whole working life for the good of the Irish people, and was considered one of the first great civil rights leaders of the world, trying to get equal rights for Irish Catholics here in Ireland. So here's the Mansion House, and today the Lord Mayor of Dublin is a lady by the name of Hazel Chu, and her parents are from Hong Kong. So Dublin today and all across Ireland is a very diverse nation with immigrants from all corners of the world. Beautiful, beautiful building, and if you see up the top there, underneath the Irish flag in the middle, you have the Dublin coat of arms, which has been the Dublin coat of arms for over 400 years. 3 chimneys burning, or if you like, 3 watchtowers. Okay, we're moving on. We're here in Merrion Square Park, and on Merrion Square, it's the second oldest of the 5 Georgian squares in Dublin, and it was established in 1762 by Lord Fitzwilliam of Merrion. Now, we to visit the iconic Oscar Wilde statue. Oscar Wilde grew up here in Merrion Square. He was born in 1854 at number 1 Merrion Square, the first house ever built on the square. We'll actually show you his house in a minute. But Oscar Wilde was a very learned man, one of the great scholars in Irish literature and British literature, and he won a scholarship from his boarding school to Trinity College Dublin, just down the street that you've seen earlier. And after 2 years he won a further scholarship to Oxford University in Oxford, and whilst there he befriended a lot of the socialite people of British society, and from that was invited to a lot of parties and many social clubs, where he'd gather all the people around in the club to tell him stories on Irish folklore. So he was already a big hit before he ever wrote a book, before he ever wrote a poem or a play. And we're coming up to his monument right now, and this monument was designed, or the sculptor was Danny Osborne, a Scottish sculptor, and was unveiled in 1997 by Oscar Wilde's grandson, Merlin Holland. It's a beautiful statue, and the statue, the monument, has him facing, I'll turn around here, his childhood home here. Number 1, Merrion Square, the first home to ever be built on Merrion Square. He lived here with his father, Sir William Wilde, and his mother, Lady Jane Wilde. His father was the leading eye and ear surgeon of his time in the mid 1800s, and his mother was a poet and a story writer who wrote for a publication called The Nation here in Dublin at the time. And she was the big influence on Oscar's career, as she used to run salons here where the who's who of Dublin society would come along and listen to the stories of Lady Jane Wilde. And she had an enormous wit about her, and she had great conversation skills. So but she was prone to exaggeration, but she always maintained, never let fact get in the way of a good story. So right here, this is Oscar's wife, Lady Constance Lloyd, and Oscar was married to her for several years. They had two boys, but he soon grew bored of married life after about 3 or 4 years, and got involved in a homosexual relationship with the Boise Lord Alfred Douglas. This sculpture right here, or this little bust, is Dionysus, the god of wine and theatre. Oscar was very much fond of his wine. Now, if you look down here, these are quotes, Oscar Wilde's quotes. He had many, many of them. My favourite is, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." But probably his most famous quote is when he travelled to America. He was at the customs and he was asked, "Do you have anything to declare?" He said, "I have nothing to declare but my genius." So we'll give you one more last look at the Oscar Wilde statue and we'll move on to Leinster House. Okay folks, we're on Merrion Street here. Merrion Street is where most of the government buildings of Dublin, of Ireland, are located. And also, if you look at this building here, this is the Merrion Hotel, 5-star hotel. It also houses Ireland's #1 restaurant, which is Patrick Guibault restaurant. It's a 2-star Michelin restaurant. But the Duke of Wellington was actually born in this hotel when it was then a townhouse belonging to his father. The Duke of Wellington, as you may know, was Arthur Wellesley and won many, many battles, and including the battle against Napoleon at Waterloo, where he defeated Napoleon. Now, if you look at, we're going down Merrion Road towards Merrion Square, and I want to show you the seat of government, the seat of Irish government here, which is known as Leinster House. This building here in front of me is the office of the Taoiseach, which is basically the Taoiseach in the Irish language means leader or prime minister, and that's his building where he resides right there. The Taoiseach at this present time is Micheál Martin, and as I say, we want to show you the Leinster House, a beautiful house that was founded in 1745 by Lord Leinster. His name was James Fitzgerald. He was one of the richest and a big landowner and entrepreneur, if you like, businessman in Dublin back in the mid 1700s. And he had 15 children. One of his children was Lord Edward Fitzgerald, a revolutionary leader who was executed for his role in the 1798 rebellion against the British Crown. So here, I'm going to turn my attention, or your attention, folks, to Leinster House. We'll cross the road here in a minute and let you have a look at it. It's a beautiful, beautiful building, and in fact, I don't know if you know, but the White House was designed by an Irishman named James Hoban from County Kilkenny, and he modelled the White House in Washington DC on this very building. Sorry we can't go in due to the restrictions of the age that we're living in right now. We can't go in, but there is the beautiful Leinster House. Now this is the back entrance to Leinster House. There is another entrance. The front entrance is on Dawson Street. Equally as beautiful a building from the front as it is from the back. So this would be considered Georgian Dublin, a Georgian estate. Today it's been the government of Ireland since 1922, when Ireland first got its independence. There's a really nice, probably the nicest museum in Dublin. Dublin has 43 museums, and most of them are free to enter, to take a look at, including this one here, which is basically the National Museum of Ireland. This is it right here. This is just once again the back entrance to it, and the front entrance is also on Dawson Street, as is Leinster House's front entrance. Beautiful museum. It's the history museum, archaeology museum, even has a dead zoo in there too. So guys, folks, that's my tour of Dublin today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, down the bottom there you'll see you could leave me a tip or buy me a cup of coffee, and subscribe to Free Tours on Foot, and check out some of the other great videos from cities around the world. It's out for me. Thanks very much, guys. My name is Dave, and if you enjoyed it, you can make a comment down below also. And if you didn't enjoy it, my name is Michael.